Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. We conclude this month of looking at the old remaining text reviews from my early days with a solo book from a Youngblood member. You know, maybe I should have just called this 90s month. Dude! People have had some questions about a few other text reviews. For instance, the Bat Baby review I did for the Agony booth back in the day, or even the 2 text reviews that led into my first episode. I make no promises, but remember, there's a lot of 2018 left. At the very least, there'll be more interesting books than what we've got today. Badrock, as I've said, is probably the only member of Youngblood that actually has an interesting premise going for him. A teenager who has been transformed into a massive hulking brute. Sure, some people called him a ripoff of the Thing from the Fantastic Four, but honestly, there's still a huge difference between a kid and an adult in this situation, and the potential storytelling opportunities it provides. Him getting his own series or miniseries exploring this stuff would be great. Unfortunately, this is a Rob Liefeld story, so screw anything concerning character development or insight. Nah, it's about guns, gritted teeth, and women cosplaying as the letter C. So far, the best thing we've seen about Badrock was Youngblood number 9, where it was a comedic tale of a spoiled teenager going to Hollywood and trying to get his way, and instead getting his comeuppance when his super awesome big-budget movie turned into a kids' cartoon series starring him as a doofus. And that was still pretty bad, so you can imagine how terrible a 2-issue miniseries for him was. And while in this last month we've seen how my opinions from back during the text reviews have softened considerably, somehow I doubt that will be the case in this one. But hey, you never know. The original text review came out on July 27th, 2007, and in 11 years a lot can change. So let's dig into Badrock number 1A and see if that's the case. Spoilers, it isn't. It's still terrible.
Allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste. I've been around.
So you're probably wondering what the deal is with the 1A thing. Well, it's pretty simple. There was an A issue and a B issue indicating the 2 variant covers of the Thing. It's not a terrible idea to mark which cover is which, but for those unfamiliar with comic numbering or the like, it just gives the impression that they're actually 2 halves of the same book, and not just the same book with different covers. On that note, it's a crapshoot which of the 2 covers is worse. My copy is, of course, the 1A, which features the over-muscled Badrock just boringly running at the reader ready to punch something. And the art being what it is, his hands are bigger than his head, and he must be really straining himself considering how tight his veins and muscles are. The 1B cover is arguably worse, since not only is it more boring, but just having him standing there, but then we have a ludicrously huge gun that he's holding, a woman in a very tight bikini that I'm guessing is the source of her spine being bent out of alignment, and the worst part, the fact that I'm pretty sure Badrock's head is just floating above his torso. I mean, it was already questionable whether Badrock had a neck, but this one makes it clear that he not only doesn't, but his head isn't actually connected to his body anyway. And on both covers, he has a little strap with a Y button on it. Not for Youngblood, but because even the comic is asking, why? Also, probably an X-Men ripoff thing. We open with Badrock's face on a splash page, and, well, I guess he just bit into a really ripe bunch of cherries based on all those juices flowing from his mouth. And get used to this new low of laziness in the comic, my friends. Rob really wants to remind you that people have faces in this book, and will take up a bunch of panels of just close-ups. You know, there's this scene in just about every action movie where the hero says to himself, "Man, I wish The Rock was in this." He says, How did I ever get myself into this mess? And then Vin Diesel says, shut up, it's a Fast and the Furious movie. Stop thinking so hard about it and enjoy the character dynamics and cool stunts. If I was in one of those movies right now, this would be that scene. And even though I tend to pride myself on my originality, unlike my creator, that would be my line. And then we'd probably get a flashback that explains how we got into the current situation, but that would get in the way of the action scenes, so that won't happen for a while. Yeah, it's a basic-ass setup for this type of story. Start in media res, show what Badrock is doing right now, then a flashback to how we got into this mess. In this book, though, doesn't happen until page 22 of a 30-page comic. 2/3 of the way through before we know what the hell is happening. Want some more basic level incompetence? Right after that opening splash page is a 2-page spread I need to turn on its side, but it's not really a spread because of all the other panels in it. That just adds to the general idiocy because there's nothing about this page that required it to be a 2-page spread. They could have all fit it on 1 page, except for maybe all the caption boxes. So, what's going on here anyway? Well, Badrock is surrounded by identical red goons holding bazookas, I guess, and he's accompanied by his father, who really wants to do the splits, and that woman from the alternate cover, identified as Gunner. What's amazing to me is that Liefeld never just invented a character simply named Gun, and made them like the one person he always puts in everything. Ironic part though, Gun only uses a sword. The perspective feels wonky, too. It's kind of this 3/4 view that screws up the sizes of everybody so the goons in the back look bigger than Gunner and Badrock's dad. That same weird perspective ends up making everybody, and especially the rubble all around them, look like cardboard cutouts. Also, in the establishing shot tucked away in the upper left corner, the moon is friggin' huge! This keeps being a thing! Why is everybody in comics convinced that the moon is so close to the Earth? Ugh. In any event, Badrock narrates that he came to this building in Chicago to rescue his father, who had been kidnapped by the most powerful criminal organization in Chicago, a group called the Vicious Circle, formerly the Virtuous Circle, but now under new management. The creep in the tin suit is their leader, and he calls himself the Overlord. Not much of an ego there, huh? I hear ya, but man, he's got great teeth. Somebody's been flossing. And to his left is a hired goon with a name. A professional killer who goes by the name Girth. Ah yes, clearly he is named Girth because he is the belt of a horse's saddle to secure it. Look it up. Girth has a serious Joker smile going on for some reason. For like the 100th time though, he's telling us that he took this job for free. Can you believe it? In this economy? Here's a weird thing. In the big panel, he's clearly smoking a cigar, but not in this panel. Instead, it looks like he has 2 clamps on his face. Said clamps disappear on the next page, and the cigar is back.
Great continuity!
Maybe Rob was going to have those clamps be a cigar, but he couldn't decide what side of the mouth it'd be on, so he just drew something there for both sides. Also, on the next page, whatever the hell is going on with Girth's teeth.
Oh, he had a mouthful of Starburst.
Like, what the hell is that? How does Rob think blood works? Blood is apparently some kind of weird veiny growth on objects, more like a fungus than a fluid. Also, that was not on the previous panel either. Bet you're feeling pretty stupid right about now, huh, little buddy? I am. Why did I think reviewing 2 Liefeld comics in a row was a good idea? Girth tells him that he should have listened and stayed away. Whatever! I've had it up to my neck with freaks like you telling me how you're gonna mop this place up with my sorry butt before wringing me out to dry. Oh good, confirmation that Badrock does indeed have a neck. Oh, and one other thing before I forget. I'm not your little buddy! The recurring nightmare of Alan Hale Jr. The blood around Badrock's mouth has now disappeared too. Maybe it's some kind of parasite that's jumping bodies between panels? Badrock leaps into the air to come down on Girth feet first, then in the next panel it's face and chest first, and on the next page, suddenly it's more like he's running at Girth to punch him.
Space is warped and time is bendable.
Badrock's punch sends Girth flying, I don't know. And I guess all the goons are just standing around watching this, since now the two are punching each other and the bloody parasite returns to Badrock's mouth. During all this, Badrock narrates about the weird thing concerning how fast these two can move, despite being so immensely huge. No kidding, especially with how thick Liefeld tends to draw these kind of characters. I'm shocked that they don't have their own gravitational fields around them. Badrock then proceeds to grab Girth by the man boob and chuck him into the goons like bowling pins. Something I should note about this, both for the original text review versus the scans I've got now, the comic is dark, and I mean printed dark. The quality makes it much more drab and difficult to look at. It was such a pain to review this back in 2007, just because it was so hard to look at for any extended period of time without my eyes drifting. It's always a sign of quality in your comic book when you can't even look at it for very long. Badrock picks up both his dad and Gunner in each hand, because he's just that huge, and leaps out of the destroyed building top, Overlord screaming for someone to stop them, while Spider-Man apparently shot some web into his mouth. Just wow. Oh, now there's an original one. I swear, if I had $1 for every time some doofus wasted his lungs on that one. Always fun when a member of Youngblood talks about how something is cliched and lame. The moon has begun to shrink, or maybe that building was so tall it actually reached into orbit, and Badrock falls down to the ground on a splash page, narrating the whole way. The truth of the matter is, I can literally think of about 24 ways I'd rather have made my big exit. 3 of those ways involved taking off my pants. I guess this is sort of what Dad must have felt like taking me on that big-ass roller coaster, the Juggernaut, when I was a kid. He said it used to drive him nuts because, as much as he knew I loved riding the thing, I always looked so tense and uncomfortable that it practically made him want to jump out and stop the whole show with his own bare hands. One unfortunate difference between roller coasters and real life, though, is that it's a lot easier to stop one than it is the other. Well, I mean, except for me. Look how big I am. I can stop roller coasters and lives just as easily. Just ask the people who made that cartoon of me. Badrock crashes through an awning, a massive one at that. Rob never does anything small, does he? To the street below. Even with that awning for support, I felt that one right through to my rump. Yeah, that awning is what broke your fall, and not the fact that you're a gargantuan rock person. Also, I'm pretty sure from the establishing shots that you're actually supposed to be much farther away from the building and wouldn't have landed on the awning. They head into the subway tunnels, conveniently big enough for Badrock to enter, but Badrock is soon attacked by Troll! Wow, at some point they finally realized the loathsome little cankersaur was a villain. Or it's that Rob has like 4 different character designs that he endlessly reuses, and this is not Troll, but someone who looks exactly like him named Low Blow. Well, this comic is like getting repeatedly hit in the crotch, so points for accuracy. Also, where the hell did he come from? Low Blow says that Overlord put out a blank check for anyone to kill Badrock. And you can bet your sweet patootie old Low Blow is gonna be the one cashing it. You know, between the swear word censorship in Youngblood number 10 and now both rump and patootie in this book, what the hell does this creative team have against the word ass? I mean, maybe they're afraid if they say it, people will associate their work with ass. Anyway, after Badrock tosses Low Blow aside, he has Gunner shoot him. And where to start with Gunner's artwork now that we can get a good look at her? Well, there's of course the swimsuit, but also the presumably cybernetic legs and arms holding whatever the hell kind of gun that is, one that has changed shape a few times so far. An eye patch. What, no cybernetic eye too? Pouches over parts of the cybernetic limbs, but that's not even the worst part of the whole thing, no. That would be her pose, where she tries to resemble a sideways W, especially with her feet pointing completely straight along with her legs. The best pose to make when shooting. In addition, 14 pages in, and this is the first time Gunner has had a line. Let's get out of here. Truly, Rob Liefeld's breakout character. The group gets on a subway, Badrock's dad expressing how he's having a hard time dealing with all this, not that we've seen any indication of that so far. Badrock says he's doing fine, and Gunner has this to say. You're a real piece of work, Badrock. One minute you're frightened to death that your dad's in danger. The next, you're acting like this is some kind of joyride. Yeah, I mean, just look at the disparate range of emotions Badrock has displayed. Like, anger! And of course, anger! Oh, but don't forget, anger! Like 3 issues happen between these pages? The hell is she talking about? A knife flies out of nowhere and hits Gunnar in the shoulder, making me realize that this poor woman's head is wider than her stomach. So 2 new guys have come out of nowhere to attack our heroes? Yeah, we'll go with that. The name's Cutthroat. I'm Hellraiser, and I'm unimpressed. Man, Cenobite designs just keep getting less and less imaginative. Oh, and here's the return of parasitic blood fungus silly string thing, now attached to Cutthroat's blade arm. The thing really does look like he just made a stylized can opener blade and shoved it on his arm. Give me a break. I've never seen so many poorly dressed, self-delusional losers in my entire life. Being a part of Youngblood, you would know, Badrock. Gotta love a guy whose name is Hellraiser, and his primary weapon appears to be a bow staff. A bow staff that he's holding behind his leg for some reason. And for someone named Cutthroat, he really went all in on the skull motif. Was he supposed to call himself Skullfang or something, and then he lost his arm? Hellraiser attacks first, and in a legitimate bit of cool, Badrock just grabs the dude by the arm and holds him up since, you know, he's huge and stuff. And Hellraiser's bow staff disappeared between pages because consistency is for people who don't invent 30 new characters in each comic he publishes. Enjoy another close-up of Badrock's bloody teeth. Is he biting his tongue in between panels? Why does blood keep spontaneously appearing places? Cutthroat tries to attack. You think you a pretty bad mother, don't you? But then Gunnar comes back in to kick him. You said the name was Cutthroat, right? Well, allow me to introduce myself. I'd reference a man of wealth and taste, but let's face it, she is not a man, this made no money, and taste went out the window a long while ago. I'm pretty. I'm bad, and providing I live long enough to settle down and raise a family one day, I'm potentially a mother. Well, that's unlikely, given the next page, because by Die Hard's crotch, your spine is at a 90-degree angle! And she says, I'm a piece of work. Yeesh. Yeah, look at how over the top she is, what with how she punched and kicked a guy unconscious. Dear God, this comic is dumb. They get off the train and run out, Gunnar knowing a place where they can go, and suddenly the moon has now become a Dyson sphere. Or maybe someone used some beauty products on the moon to really smooth out its surface. Just jeez. The fact that she grew up on the streets of Chicago is turning out to be a definite plus. Man, if her parents hadn't run out on her when they did, I bet they'd be impressed now. Chick's been through some rough times and still managed to come out of it relatively okay. For the love of... Why are you so allergic to having characters talk about themselves so we can learn their backstory instead of having narrative captions write out their Wikipedia pages? It's not hard! They could stay on the train, sit down for a bit, Badrock can say, I don't know what I'd do without my dad, Gunnar could say, hey, I survived without my parents, and I think you could too. Bonding moments! Characterization! Not drawing everybody in the middle of some high-action pose and letting the reader breathe! It's easy to see why Liefeld kept missing deadlines and inventing new characters. Everything he creates is just so boring! But instead of trying to do anything interesting with them, he just ends up making the same crap over and over and over and over! It's a Mobius strip of comic creation! And it's not like he's incapable of it, because there's a bit of a variation on my suggestion right in the next panel, where Badrock thinks to himself how he doesn't think he could handle not having his parents, so he knows what sympathetic character motivations are, he just doesn't care about writing them! And yes, now, 22 pages in, is when we flash back to how this all got started. Badrock was helping his dad cook food in their kitchen in yet another bizarre 3/4 bird's eye view shot, and they're discussing how he's upset that his parents read a gossip magazine that featured him. I don't know what you're getting so upset about, Thomas. From the pictures I saw, she looked like a very pretty girl. And your mother said she was an actress. Dad, not that you know or anything, but I don't really think what that chick does qualifies as acting. I mean, all she's got to do to get in character is take off her clothes and... Did they just suggest that Badrock is dating a porn star? As in, underage teenager Badrock is dating a porn star? Oh, whatever. Badrock has to leave to get some cilantro from the store, but when he returns to his house, he finds it completely burned down. Waiting there is Girth on this 2-page spread I have to turn on its side. How did he not see this guy from miles away? Girth says that if Badrock wants to see his dad again, he'd better stay out of the way. This is about something the Overlord wants from his father. He continues on the next page and, oh god, these 2 panels are just their faces filling up everything!
Extreme close-up! Whoa! Whoa!
Criminy, does Badrock have spiders living in his mouth? What the hell is that? Girth is revealed to be a hologram, and he challenges Badrock to go after him. I don't know how the hell they tracked him down from there, but whatever. Back to the present. And so our comic ends with the group turning the corner and running into a 2-page spread I have to turn on its side of the character Savage Dragon. You know, I've covered a few other early Image books, but I haven't done that one. Yeah, maybe next year. Anyway, as you may have discerned, this comic sucks! This is actually kind of worse than even the regular Youngblood issues. Youngblood's first volume did actually have some downtime moments. I mean, it took like 6 issues for those downtime moments to arrive, but it showed Badrock doing the whole celebrity superhero thing, and the coloring was at least brighter so it didn't strain my eyes, and we didn't get thrown into the action until maybe the end of the book decided to tell us, oh, by the way, here's how I got into this mess. It's made even dumber when you realize that the whole opening setup of, hey, it's the cliched action movie, how'd I get into this mess, doesn't actually lead into that. No, what gets Badrock flashing back is thinking about Gunner, who barely has any lines in this thing. Which reminds Badrock of when his dad thought he was dating a porn star because of a gossip rag. The artwork is naturally horrendous, with inconsistent models, over-exaggerated proportions on everybody, even Badrock's normal dad, and when you're done with the book, all you want to do is brush your teeth. This has been an interesting, if painful, trip down memory lane for the text reviews, but now it's time for something fun. As all non-Patreon sponsored episodes this year are follow-ups to previous reviews, we're going to the recent past next week, beginning Event Comics Month 2 and the direct sequel to Crisis on Infinite Earths, Infinite Crisis. And enjoy one more shot of a bloody mouth.
Gingivitis.
Alrighty. How's everybody doing?
Wondering why I got called to this meeting.
We might need your input on some stuff. Where's Eliza? She declined attending. I see. Well, we have to proceed anyway. Cheers. A few months ago, I was invited to participate in the Interdimensional Contest of Champions. We went over that after the Halloween incident, but there hasn't been any news since then, until now. To help prepare the competitors, the Temlins, the guys who run this whole shebang, send out detailed dossiers of all the competitors to each contestant. Look, the simple fact is, if I'm in this, I'm in it to win it, so we need to start making preparations.
What sort of preparations?
Enhancing my tech, running battle simulations, coming up with whole new gadgets and strategies for this. Well, fortunately, we do have something on our side. We have finally finished our analysis of Comicron 1 in the wake of what happened last September. Bad news first. Temporal shields, advanced weaponry, and increased power output are all gone without Vice. We were able to gather a lot of data on what happened when Vice was on board the ship, but so far, our attempts to trick the system into believing that Vice was still on board have not yielded any positive results.
In addition, sections of the database were irreparably damaged both by the initial crash and the battle with Comicron 2. I'd say we've lost about 50% of the original library computer. We're still sorting through it, but a lot of sensor data and catalogs on various threats were gone.
And the good news? The Forge is still operational. Now, its capabilities are limited. I doubt we could repair the ship to the extremes Vice was able to when he got it off the moon's surface, but the replication system is very impressive, which led us to an interesting discovery.
The Vigilant is not the only scout ship Vice had.
How's that possible? We've mapped out the ship before. There's no room for other shuttles or stuff like that. Oh, but there is! The Forge's replication systems allow it to break down one scout ship and completely manufacture a different one. There are various types of vessels. A more long-range scout, a speed-based vessel, a gunship, one meant for more scientific examination, of course.
We're working on seeing if we can manufacture the other vessels without needing to break down the Vigilant for it.
Sounds promising. Keep at it. Alright, Jairus, why don't you take it from here?
I've agreed to be Linkara's coach for this contest. Now, they start with 32 champions, including Linkara for the initial round. That number will get whittled down with each round, but we don't know yet who Linkara's going to be fighting for the first bout. We're still going over the stuff the Temblin sent, but we've picked a few that we think we should be worried about and start trying to think of some strategies on how to fight them.
Assuming we know what sort of contests they'll pick. Couldn't it just be like a board game or something? It's possible, but a board game might be a bit fairer than they want to play it. Chances are they'll pick something they're really good at. The rules state that they have to have a reasonable chance for their opponent to win.
Well, in my experience, reasonable chance means whatever the hell they feel like it means. In one of my contests, I picked target shooting, and the other guy may have held a pistol once in his life. They let me get away with it.
So, let's start going over the dossiers, beginning with the one we've already met before, Impera.
Impera is a witch. In her universe, magic is more commonplace, but truly skilled sorcerers like her can level buildings. However, Impera apparently has fought demonic spirits and creatures before, so she's more of a hero than villain. And she tends to prefer subterfuge and mental trickery than shooting fireballs. She likes to let her opponent's minds destroy themselves for her.
Considering she already used the mental crap on me before, chances are good next time we fight she'll just be shooting fireballs.
This will be her first contest, but apparently she had a friend that competed in a couple before. Oh, speaking about first-timers, flip over to the next one here. Destra Galga, King of Creatures.
It's a kaiju. There's a freaking kaiju champion? Yep. Destra Galga is 100 meters tall, can shoot a flaming energy beam from its mouth, and the spines on its back can apparently launch out and magnetically return to him. On his world, much like Godzilla, he's been both hero and villain. He's beaten several other kaijus, lost a few fights, and done untold amounts of damage. Dude, this is gonna be the best fight ever!
How does a kaiju wear an infinity gauntlet?
I'm sure it'll grow in size to fit. It is all-powerful. A better question is how a freaking kaiju understands what all this is.
Gotta have enough intelligence to understand most of this. He's fighting after all.
Which means we should probably start working on getting Neutro back up and running again should the time come.
But honestly, it's the next guy we gotta worry about. The Bandit Chief. He has no other name. This will be his 4th contest that he's participated in. He's the guy that beat me when I was in a contest. He's a survivalist and a mercenary. He's cunning, he's fast, and I don't doubt for a moment that if killing actually happened in these contests, he wouldn't hesitate to slit your throat just for the fun of it.
He's lost in all the other contests he's participated in, but he's made it to the semifinals in 2 of them.
From what happened in my contest, the best way to beat him is to somehow put him on even ground. If he picks a contest, it's gonna be on his playground.
Sounds good. Who's next?
Well, Pylo.
Are those rocks?
What, so it's like a rock monster or something? Sort of.
Well, in that... Yeah, they're rocks.
Pull the other one.
Are you saying this champion is a pile of rocks?
Yeah, we're still not entirely certain how it works either.
Pylo has participated in 5 contests before this one, and he's made it to 2nd place in one of them. He's apparently a crowd favorite.
It's a pile of rocks!
Which means there's something weird about it that we gotta be concerned about, so, start thinking of ways to fight rocks.
Rockin'! I figure this is a good place for us to start. We'll schedule another meeting in a few days, study the dossiers, figure out who you think is going to be a problem, and some strategies that we can use to fight them. We'll reconvene then.
Wait, Ace Corgi? Attorney at Paw?
Yeah, we weren't too worried about that one.
Well, what if he challenges you to a lawyering contest? Or eating dog food?
Better start practicing.
Are we sure this ain't some big con?